Nadia Raymond was 3 weeks behind on rent when she found the index card. It was taped to the bulletin board at the community center on Steinway Street, between a flyer for a Saturday Zumba class and a handwritten note about a missing tabby cat named Mr. Biryani. The index card was small. The handwriting was large. Event staff needed. One night. Formal occasion. $400 cash. There was a phone number at the bottom. No address. No name. Nadia photographed it with her cracked phone screen. The crack split diagonally across the image, cutting through the number. She still had all the digits. She went home and called from her kitchen while standing at the counter eating leftover rice from a pot she had made 3 days ago and had not bothered to transfer to a bowl. The woman who answered was efficient. She said the job was one evening, a private residence, a birthday party for a child. She asked if Nadia had experience in hospitality or event coordination. Nadia said yes. This was not fully a lie. She had worked a restaurant on Astoria Boulevard for 4 months in 2021. It had served food. People had attended. That was hospitality adjacent. She did not think about the address until the rideshare dropped her off in front of a building in Manhattan where the doorman wore a suit better than anything Nadia owned, and she stood on the sidewalk for a moment. Tote bag held shut with one hand because the zipper had been broken for 6 months, and she kept meaning to fix it, looking up at the glass and steel of the building and thinking, wrong century, wrong girl. She took a breath. She went to the service entrance. The event coordinator was a woman named something that Nadia immediately forgot, who wore a headset and moved through the lobby like someone whose entire sense of self depended on the next 5 minutes going correctly. She looked at Nadia, looked at her shoes, looked at her tote bag, and then looked at her face again, in the way people do when they are performing a rapid calculation they hope you cannot see. She briefed Nadia in under 2 minutes. Birthday party. 9-year-old girl. 30 guests, mostly children. The host was Mr. Voss. She said the name the way people say the names of people whose last names have become shorthand for something, not explaining who he was, because not knowing would be the embarrassing thing. Do not engage the host directly. Do not compliment the apartment. Do not ask questions. And then, face painting. Could Nadia do face painting? Nadia said yes. This was a complete lie. She had never held a face painting brush in her life. She had taken one art class in community college before dropping it to pick up an extra shift. She had drawn one thing in the last decade, a birthday card for her mother with a wobbly cake on it, that her mother had put on the refrigerator anyway, and then kept there for 3 years, which was either sweet or evidence that Nadia's mother needed more things to put on her refrigerator. She sat at the face painting table and looked at the supplies. There were small pots of color. There were brushes in 3 sizes. There was a laminated card with 12 preset designs: butterfly, cat, spider, princess crown, rainbow, star, dinosaur, ladybug, tiger, dragon, superhero mask, and flower. One of the children plopped into the chair across from her. Nadia smiled. She picked up a brush. She painted a butterfly. It took 12 minutes, and the left wing came out bigger than the right wing, and the child looked at themselves in the handheld mirror and said, "It's lopsided." And Nadia said, "Butterflies are asymmetrical in nature," which was something she was not sure was true, but she said it with enough confidence that the child nodded thoughtfully and got up and left. She repainted the left wing smaller. It was in the middle of the 3rd butterfly. She had gotten faster. The wings were nearly matching, that she felt something change in the room. It wasn't a sound. It wasn't a specific movement. It was more like the air pressure shifted slightly, the way it does when someone very tall walks into a room, or when someone very certain of their own weight does. She looked up. He was crossing the far side of the room, heading from one doorway to another. He was wearing a dark suit, the way people wear suits when suits are not a performance for them, but simply what they put on in the morning. He was holding a glass of water. He had not taken a drink from it. He was looking at something on the far wall, or maybe not looking at anything. The kind of man whose face, at rest, looks like he is thinking about something 4 layers below the surface of wherever he is standing. Nadia looked back at the butterfly. She drew the antenna too thick. She had to thin it out with a damp corner of the sponge. This took longer than the rest of the butterfly combined. She did not look up again. She was on the 8th or ninth face. She had begun to lose count when the birthday girl sat down in the chair. Nadia knew immediately that this was the birthday girl because she walked the way children walk when they are used to rooms organizing themselves around their presents. Not arrogant, not spoiled exactly, just aware. She was 9 years old, and she sat down in the face-painting chair with the composure of someone who had already decided something before she arrived. She had her father's eyes, that same quality of being several layers deep. Nadia smiled. "Happy birthday. What would you like today?" The girl looked at the laminated card. She studied it for a full 6 seconds. She looked back at Nadia. "I want a wolf." There was no wolf on the laminated card. Nadia looked at the laminated card anyway, in case she had missed it. She had not missed it. There was no wolf. "A wolf," Nadia repeated. "Yes, with detail. Every other face painter in the history of children's birthday parties would have negotiated. How about a dog? What about a tiger? That's kind of like a wolf." The wolf had a snout with fur detail. Amber eyes painted around the girl's own eyes, so that when she blinked, the eyes of the wolf seemed to blink too. Gray and black fur texture that swept across her cheeks, a set of teeth along her lower jaw that were careful and precise without being frightening. The other children had drifted over to watch by the end. Even some of the adults had drifted over. Nadia handed the girl the mirror. The girl looked at herself for a long time. Nobody spoke. Then she lowered the mirror. She looked at Nadia with the directness that only children and very old people have access to. "You're staying for the whole party," she said. It was not a question. "I work here," Nadia said. "So, in a manner of speaking, you're staying near me specifically," the girl clarified. "My name is Cora, Nadia." "I know. I saw your name on the staff sheet." Cora slid off the chair and held the mirror so she could see her own wolf face as she walked away, and then she stopped and turned back. "I'll tell my dad." She said this the way a 9-year-old says, "I'll tell my dad," when they mean it as a guarantee rather than a threat. Then she walked directly into the party, and the circle of other children parted around her. Nadia sat at the face-painting table for a moment. She picked up a brush. She put it down. She did not know what had just happened, exactly, but she felt it the way you feel certain moments. Before you understand them, before you can name them, in the part of your body that registers things before your brain catches up. The magician arrived 45 minutes late. The event coordinator, still moving through the rooms with the energy of a person dismantling something while trying to make it look like construction, received a text at 7:15 and then went very still in the middle of the living room and then typed rapidly and then said something under her breath that Nadia was close enough to hear and would not repeat. The birthday cake arrived at 7:30. It said, "Happy birthday, Clara," in blue frosting. The girl's name was Cora. At 7:45, the event coordinator walked past Nadia's face-painting table and said, in the clipped tone of someone reassigning battlefield resources, that she was going to handle the magician situation and would Nadia please manage the transition to cake. And then she left. Nadia sat at the face-painting table. She looked at the 30 children in the room, and the scattered adults and the wrong-named cake in the kitchen, and the absence of any other event staff she could locate. She stood up. She did not decide to run the party. She just did not stop moving. She pulled 2 children's tables together to make a longer surface. She found the party game supplies in a bag near the fireplace, still tagged, still sealed, and opened them and organized them by age appropriateness in about 4 minutes. She introduced a game that she invented on the spot, which was a version of charades, but the children had to act out types of weather, and it was chaotic and loud, and the adults began watching from the edges of the room with expressions that suggested cautious optimism. She rearranged the snack table. She rearranged it again when it did not feel right. She was in the middle of rearranging it a third time. She had moved the juice boxes to the left end, because that's where the children were coming from, and it reduced congestion at the middle, when she became aware of someone standing nearby. She looked up. He was close enough that she registered the detail of him in a way she hadn't from across the room. The suit, the glass of water, still in his hand, still untouched. He was watching her the way you watch something you cannot put in a category, which is the kind of watching that makes a person aware of their own hands. Nadia's hands were currently holding a stack of juice boxes. She put them down. "I'm sorry about the chaos," she said. "The event coordinator." "It's fine," he said. He was still watching the party. Watching the children, specifically. Watching Cora, who was winning the weather charades by a significant margin and who had recruited 2 other children to be her team, even though it was supposed to be individual play. "She comes with instructions," he said. He didn't say it to Nadia, exactly. He said it to the room. "She gave me one," Nadia said. "She said she wanted a wolf." Something moved across his face. Very small, very fast, there and gone. "She gets that from her mother," he said. He walked away before Nadia could respond. He walked toward the kitchen, unhurried, holding his water glass. He set it on the counter. He picked up an empty cup from the table and carried it to the kitchen. He didn't need to. The cup was not in anyone's way. He needed something to do with his hands, and that was the thing that was available. Nadia watched him go. She straightened the juice boxes. At 9 o'clock she collected her envelope. The cash was in it. All $400. She counted it at the face-painting table while she was packing up the brushes and paints into their case, because she had been raised by a woman who said, "You count money the moment it is handed to you. Not because you don't trust people," her mother said, "but because you respect the transaction." She put her coat on. She picked up her tote bag and held it shut with one hand. Cora was standing at the elevator, arms crossed, wolf still on her face. She was wearing it the way certain children wear things. Not like a costume, but like a flag. "You can't leave," Cora said. Nadia looked at the elevator. She looked at the girl. She put her bag down and crouched to eye level, which was something she had done at the community center with children for 3 years, and which she did without deciding to do it. It was just the thing her body did. "Baby," she said, "it's almost 9:30. Your bedtime." "I know what time it is," Cora said. "I know my bedtime." Then, "You can put me to bed." Nadia was quiet for a moment. "That's not my job." "It could be your job." "Cora, I'll ask my dad." She said it not as a threat and not as a bargaining chip. She said it as a simple statement of the next logical step she intended to take. And then she walked back into the party with the calm certainty of a child who has already decided how the evening ends. Nadia stood by the elevator. She shifted her tote bag to her other hand. He appeared about 3 minutes later. He did not ask how the conversation with Cora had gone. He looked at Nadia with the expression of a man who already knew how the conversation with Cora had gone, because this was not the first time, and probably not the 51st time, that his daughter had cornered someone near an exit. He said, "I'll double it." He meant the $400. He said it like a line in a spreadsheet, like a number that solved a problem. Nadia looked at him. She understood, in the way you understand things that people do not say out loud, that he did not know how to ask for what he was actually asking for. That the $800 was a container for something that did not fit inside any vocabulary he currently had access to. She needed the money. She told herself she was taking the job for that reason. She held her tote bag shut with one hand and went to put Cora to bed. Cora took 40 minutes to put to bed. This was because Cora had questions. Not stalling questions. She was not that kind of child. She had genuine questions. She wanted to know if wolves actually howled at the moon, or if that was a story humans had invented because they needed the moon to be responsible for things. She wanted to know how old Nadia was and what she had wanted to be when she was 9, and whether Nadia thought that what you wanted to be when you were 9 said anything true about what you actually became. Nadia sat on the edge of the bed and answered every question. She told Cora that she had wanted to be a marine biologist when she was 9. She told Cora that she had become a face painter, temporarily, tonight, on the basis of a single lie she had told on the phone. She told Cora that she thought wolves howled because sound carried differently at night, and not because of the moon specifically, but that she couldn't be fully certain and Cora should look it up. Cora considered this. "You're honest," she said. "I try. Most adults aren't honest with kids. They smooth things." "I know. I don't like it when they smooth things." "I know that too," Nadia said. "Now sleep." Cora slept. Nadia turned off the lamp and sat in the dark room for a moment that lasted longer than she meant it to. There was something in the room, not a sound, not a presence, just the particular quality of a child's bedroom that is also, somehow, the quietest room in a house that is otherwise filled with the specific kind of silence that happens when grief has been living in a place for a long time and has become indistinguishable from the furniture. She got up. She walked out to the hallway. He was there. He had been there, she thought, for some of it. Not inside the room, but in the hallway. She couldn't say why she thought that. He was just standing there holding, she looked, a different glass of water, still full. "She asleep?" he said. "Yes," he nodded. He looked at the door to Cora's room. He looked at it the way people look at things they are grateful for and don't know what to do with the gratitude. "She liked you," he said. "I liked her back," Nadia said. "She's going to be a lot. She already is. I mean that as a compliment." He looked at her. "I know." Nadia picked up her bag from where she had set it against the wall. She held it shut. She walked to the elevator. She pressed the button. "I'll transfer the rest," he said, behind her. "If you give me your—" "It's fine," she said. "The 400 is fine." She did not explain why. She did not know, entirely, why. She got in the elevator and went home to Queens on the subway at 10:45 at night and sat in her kitchen and ate the leftover rice again and thought about a 9-year-old girl who asked real questions and a man who refilled his water glass without drinking from it. She went to sleep. Her phone rang at 8 the next morning. It was a number she didn't recognize. She answered it because she was 3 weeks behind on rent, and unknown numbers might be opportunity, or they might be her landlord's property management company, and either way she needed to deal with it. It was Cora. "How did you get my number?" Nadia said. "From the staff sheet," Cora said. "I told you. I saw your name." "The staff sheet has people's phone numbers on it." "The coordinator left it on the counter," Cora said. "She also left her headset. And a pen. Baba gave them to the doorman in case she came back for them." A pause. "She didn't come back for them." "Okay," Nadia said. "I have questions," Cora said. "About wolves. About everything." They talked for an hour. Nadia was sitting at her kitchen counter, still in the oversized t-shirt she slept in, pouring herself coffee with one hand and holding the phone with the other. She answered questions about the subway and about Queens and about what her mother cooked and about whether Nadia thought the ocean was more interesting than space. She asked Cora questions back. She learned that Cora's favorite book was a nature encyclopedia with photographs that she read like other children read novels. She learned that Cora could identify 17 types of clouds by shape. She learned that Cora was in 4th grade and was, by her own accounting, fine at school but excellent at being alone, which she said without sadness, just as a fact about herself. At the end of the hour, Cora said, "My dad wants to say something." And before Nadia could process this, his voice was on the line. "I wanted to thank you," he said, "for last night. The party was fine," Nadia said. "It recovered." "It did," he said. "You made it recover. I rearranged the juice boxes. You did more than that." She didn't say anything. Neither did he, for a moment. "I'll let you go," he said. He called again the next morning. This is the part of the story that is hard to explain, simply because the simple version sounds like something it isn't. He called every morning for 2 weeks. Each time Cora was on the line for most of it. Each time, at the end, there was a minute or two where it was just Nadia and him, and they said small things about nothing. What the weather was doing, whether she'd taken the subway or walked, whether Cora had told him what she'd asked Nadia about that morning. He was listening those minutes. She could tell by the quality of the silence. She caught herself, after the 8th or 9th call, sitting in her kitchen after she'd hung up and staring at the bottom of her coffee cup. "This is fine," she told herself. This is a child who needed something. This is what she had done at the community center for 3 years, shown up for children who needed someone to show up. That was all this was. She believed this for approximately 4 more days. Then he called and said, "I have a proposal." She had been pouring water into her coffee maker. She stopped. "There is a coordinator role," he said. "For the household. Formal. Salaried." He said the number. She put the water pitcher down. The number he said was the kind of number that reorganizes the geography of your life. It was the kind of number where rent became a non-sentence, where her mother's knee surgery stopped being something they did in increments based on what they could move around in a given month, where the broken zipper on the tote bag became something she fixed the same week she noticed it, instead of 4 months later. She said, "I'm not a nanny." There was a pause. Then, "I know. That's not what I'm asking for." "Then what are you asking for?" Another pause. Longer this time. "Someone who talks to her the way you talk to her," he said. I don't always know what she needs. She's 9. She needs someone who says real things." Nadia sat down on the kitchen stool. She looked at the wall. "I'll think about it," she said. She thought about it for 3 days. She made a list in her phone of reasons to say no. The list had 11 items. The first item was, "This is not a real job. This is a feeling in a suit." The second item was, "You don't know anything about this man." The third item was, "Cora is not your child." She read the list back to herself on the third night. She texted him, "Yes." The first dinner was a Tuesday. Nadia arrived at 6. She was wearing the same kind of clothes she always wore: dark jeans, a good blouse, boots she had saved up for and which were the one thing in her wardrobe she considered genuinely excellent. She did not dress up. She did not dress down. She arrived as herself, which she had decided on the subway was the only strategy available to her. Cora opened the door, still in her school uniform, still that composure. "You're here," she said, as if confirming a weather event she had predicted. "I'm here," Nadia said. The apartment was large in the way apartments are large when the person who lives in them is not trying to fill space, but has simply allowed space to exist around them. It was not cold. There were books, children's drawings pinned in a cluster near the kitchen, a very old-looking rug in the living room that suggested someone had once cared very much about rugs. But it was quiet in a way that felt less like peace, and more like what's left after something loud has stopped. He came in from the other side of the kitchen. He was in different clothes. Still neat, still the kind of person who apparently owned no casual clothing, but a different version of formal. A shirt without a jacket, dark trousers. He looked at Nadia and said, "You came. I said I would. I know." He pulled out a chair. "Sit." Cora picked the food. Cora had picked Thai food, which arrived in containers that covered most of the kitchen table. Cora ate and talked without pausing except to breathe, covering, in order, the cloud she had seen from school that morning, which was a lenticular cloud, which is rare in the city, an argument she had won with her science teacher about whether viruses are alive. The exact ways in which the wolf Nadia had painted on her face at the party had been anatomically accurate or inaccurate. Nadia learned 3 new things about lenticular clouds. She ate the green curry, and it was good. She looked across the table at him twice. Both times he was listening to Cora with his whole attention in the way people listen when listening is the most significant thing they can offer. At one point he looked back at Nadia. He looked away before she did. At the end of dinner he said, "Tell me something." She waited. "Anything," he said. "About yourself." It was a strange thing to ask. It was strangely sincere. She said, "I dropped out of my social work program to make rent, and I've been making rent ever since." She said it plainly, the way facts are facts. "I don't know if I regret it yet." He looked at her for a moment. "Why not yet?" he said. "Because regret requires knowing what the other version looked like," she said. "I don't know what the other version looked like." He refilled her water glass. She understood, in the way she was coming to understand him, that this was his version of a response. She started on a Monday. Her official role had a title that appeared on exactly one piece of paperwork: household coordinator, and involved, in practice, being the person who was there when Cora got home from school, who stayed through dinner, who knew the questions Cora was carrying that week and could field them, who occasionally had a quiet conversation with him about what Cora needed or what she seemed to be thinking about, delivered in the kitchen while Cora was in her room, and neither of them named what these kitchen conversations actually were. The days had a shape to them. Cora came home at 3:30. She dropped her bag inside the door the same way every day, a specific kind of drop, bag landing on its side, left strap up, and then she came to find Nadia, wherever Nadia was, and she talked, and Nadia listened and talked back, and by 4:30 they had covered whatever had happened that day and could move into something else. He came home at different times, sometimes 6, sometimes 8, once 11 at night, and Nadia had stayed because Cora had a stomachache and she had not wanted to leave until she knew the girl was settled, and he walked in and found Nadia on the couch, with Cora asleep against her shoulder, and he stood in the doorway for a moment before he said anything. She could not read his face from where she was sitting. She was not sure she would have known what she was reading even if she could. She carried Cora to her room. He waited in the hallway. "Thank you," he said. "She's fine," Nadia said. "Just tired. She had a hard day." "What happened?" she told him. He listened. He stood in the hallway of his own apartment and listened to someone else tell him about his daughter's day, and there was something in his face during that listening that was not guilt exactly but was adjacent to it, the feeling of a person who suspects they have been missing things and is not sure what to do with the suspicion. "She didn't tell me," he said. "She will," Nadia said. "She needs a day sometimes, to process." He looked at Cora's door. "She gets that from me," he said. He said it to the door, not to Nadia. She pretended she didn't hear it. There was a morning, about 6 weeks in, when she was in the kitchen making coffee before Cora woke up. This had become a thing. She arrived early enough for coffee before school, and he came in, and they stood on opposite sides of the kitchen island and talked about nothing for 20 minutes. She could not tell you afterward what they talked about. The weather again. Something about a book Cora had started. Something about whether the coffee maker was working correctly or whether one of the settings had been accidentally changed. She could tell you that at one point he laughed. It was small. It was at something she said. Something small and self-deprecating about her own inability to use any coffee maker more complicated than a pour-over. And he laughed. And it was the kind of laugh that happens when a person is caught off guard by their own amusement, when they did not know they were going to laugh until they already were. It lasted maybe 2 seconds. She looked at her coffee cup. He cleared his throat. Neither of them said anything about it. Cora cornered her on a Wednesday afternoon. This was Cora's technique. The corner. She did not announce herself. She arrived in whatever room Nadia was in, and she stood there until Nadia noticed her, and then she said the thing she had been building to say, directly, with no warm-up. "My dad doesn't look at people," Cora said. Nadia put down the book she was reading. "He looks at his laptop and his phone, and out the window," Cora said. "At his phone, mostly, and sometimes at the window when he's thinking about something sad." Nadia waited. "He looks at you," Cora said. She said it with the simple certainty of a scientist reporting an observation. "He looks at you like you might leave." Nadia didn't answer. She was very aware of the book in her hands, and the pattern of the rug under her feet, and the specific quality of light coming in from the window, which was afternoon light, which was soft, which was the kind of light that made things feel more fragile than they were. "He looked at my mom like that," Cora said. "I was small, but I remember." She left the room. Nadia sat there for a while. She picked up the book. She read the same sentence 4 times. It was about seabirds. She could not have told you what it said. He invited her to a charity gala. He told her on a Tuesday, the way he told her most things, delivered as information rather than as a question, not because he was inconsiderate, but because asking for things was not something he had practiced in a long time, if ever. "There's an event Friday," he said. "I'd like you to come." "As what?" she said. He blinked. It was the only time she had ever seen him caught off guard by a question. "As, with me," he said. She borrowed a dress from her friend Priya, who was 2 sizes smaller in the shoulders, which meant the dress fit wrong in exactly the place that showed. She stood in front of the mirror in Queens and looked at the dress and thought about not going. She went. The building was on the Upper East Side, and the event was for a hospital or a museum. She lost track. There were several causes mentioned in the opening remarks, and the room was full of people who wore the kind of clothing that is specifically designed to look like it required no effort, while in fact requiring enormous effort and expense. They looked at her, not rudely, with the specific blankness of people who are performing good social manners over active curiosity. She stood very straight. She had been standing this straight her entire life. She was on her 6th chandelier. She had started counting them when she ran out of other things to look at, and was stuck near the far window while he spoke with someone she did not know, when she felt him beside her. He handed her a glass of water. "We can leave," he said quietly. "It's fine," she said. "I can see it's not fine." She looked at him. He was looking at the room, not at her, but there was something in the set of his face that said he had been watching her for a little while before he came over. "I'm fine," she said. "Okay." He stayed beside her. He did not make her go back into the center of the room. They stood by the window, and someone came to talk to him, and she was included in the conversation, and he introduced her without a label, just her name, just "This is Nadia." And the way he said it, the weight he put on the 3 syllables, made it sound like her name was sufficient information. On the way home, in the car, she said, "I'm not your arrangement." He was quiet. "I don't know what that means exactly," she said, "but I'm not whatever that is. I'm not something you built into a structure." 12 blocks of silence. "I know that," he said. "Then what am I?" 12 more blocks. "I don't know yet," he said. She looked out the window at the city going by. The neighborhoods changing. The way Manhattan gives way to the bridge, and then Queens opens up on the other side of it. She knew every corner of what she was looking at. She had grown up in this borough. She had walked these streets in every weather, at every hour, with every version of her own life. She was 27 years old, and she was riding in a car that cost more than her mother had made in a decade, and she was sitting next to a man who said, "I don't know yet," as if those 3 words were enough, and she did not know if they were enough, or what enough would even look like. She did not tell him any of this. She looked at the window. She went home. She quit on a Tuesday. She wrote the text at 6 in the morning, standing in her kitchen, and she wrote it 3 times before she sent it. The 3rd version was 3 sentences. Professional. It thanked him for the opportunity, and wished Cora well, and said she would not be continuing in the role. She meant every word. She also meant none of it. Her phone rang at 6:04. It was Cora. Nadia answered because it was Cora, and she had promised herself, when she sent the text, that she would answer if Cora called. Neither of them said anything for 11 seconds. She counted. Then Cora said, "He cried." Nadia sat down. "He doesn't know I know," Cora said. "He was in the kitchen. He thought I was asleep. I wasn't asleep." A pause. "I'm never asleep when I look asleep." "Cora, he doesn't cry," Cora said. "He cried when my mom died. I know because I heard him then too. He thought I was asleep then also." Her voice was very steady. She had the voice of a person who was choosing steadiness with intention. And then he stopped, and he didn't again, until this morning. Nadia pressed her hand flat against the kitchen counter. "Come back," Cora said. "It's complicated," Nadia said. "I know it's complicated," Cora said. "I'm 9, not 5. "I know." "Then come back." Nadia did not answer. She sat at her kitchen counter and looked at the crack in the wall above the stove that her landlord had been promising to fix since 2022. Cora waited on the other end of the line, with the patience of someone who had learned that patience was a tool and not just a virtue. "I'll think about it," Nadia said. "Okay," Cora said, and hung up. He showed up on a Wednesday. Nadia was home. She was in her 2nd-best pair of jeans and an old university sweatshirt. She had not finished the degree, but she kept the sweatshirt, and she was about to start rewriting her resume because she did not know what she was going to do next, and making the resume felt like doing something even when it was not. Her intercom buzzed. She pressed the button. "Who is it?" A pause. "Voss," he said. She stood at the intercom panel. "Cora is with me," he added. She buzzed them in. She opened her apartment door and looked at the stairwell, and she heard them coming up before she saw them. The sound of Cora's footsteps, quick and certain, and his footsteps below that, measured. Cora came around the landing first. She was holding a paper bag from the diner on the corner, the diner on Nadia's corner, which Nadia had mentioned exactly once, in passing, in a conversation 4 months ago about breakfast foods. Cora thrust the bag forward. "Baba remembered," she said. He appeared on the landing behind her. He was in the suit again. She understood now that he simply lived in suits. And he was standing on the landing of a walk-up building in Astoria, Queens, on a Wednesday afternoon, looking at Nadia's face with the expression of a man who does not know what comes next. This was new. She had seen him uncertain before. She had not seen him this. "I don't know how to do this," he said. She waited. "I don't know how to—" He stopped. He looked at the bag in Cora's hands, and then at Nadia's face, and then at a point somewhere between the two of them. "Cora needs you." "I know," she said. A pause. "Only Cora," she said. He looked at her. "No," he said. "Just that. One word." It cost him something, that word. She could see it cost him, the way certain things cost people who have not spent them in a long time. And he said it anyway. She looked at him on the landing. She looked at Cora, who was watching them both with the expression of someone watching a science experiment she has already predicted the results of and is simply waiting for confirmation. Nadia stepped back from the door. She did not say yes. She did not say come in. She stepped back from the door, which was the same thing, and she took the paper bag from Cora's hands, and Cora was already inside, already past the door, already asking where the kitchen was, with the certainty of someone who has already decided that this is a place she belongs. Nadia set the bag on the counter. She heard him behind her in the doorway, waiting. "You can leave your shoes by the door," she said. She did not look at him. She did not need to. She heard him step inside. She heard the small sound of him setting his shoes against the wall. She heard Cora open a cabinet, the wrong one, the one with the pots, and then find the plates on the second try, and set 3 of them on the counter without being asked. 3. Nadia stood at the counter with both hands free for the first time in a long time, and she opened the paper bag, and inside it was the breakfast for dinner order from the diner on the corner, the one she had mentioned exactly once, in passing, in a conversation that she had not thought he was paying attention to, and it was exactly right. 6 months later, Cora's school had a production. It was a play about animal mythology across different cultures. The teacher had assigned the parts and the costumes, and Cora had been assigned, without any maneuvering on her own part, the role of the wolf. Nadia and he arrived together. They sat in the front row because Cora had given specific instructions about the front row in a tone that did not leave much room for interpretation. They sat with the specific gap between them that had been shrinking, in increments, over 6 months. Not measured, not discussed, just closing the way things close when nobody is pushing and nobody is running. The gap, on the night of the school play, was approximately the width of nothing. Neither of them reached for the other's hand. They were not there yet, or they were exactly there, and which one it was depended on which of them you asked, and neither of them was going to answer that question tonight. The play started. The lights went down. The children came on stage in their costumes. Cora came on last. She was in a gray costume with painted silver at the edges. She had not asked Nadia to paint her face this time. She had painted it herself. This morning, before school, in the bathroom, with the same paints that had been sitting in Nadia's old face painting kit since the birthday party. She had painted it alone, privately, and she had come out of the bathroom and showed it to Nadia, without asking for feedback, in the way she showed things when she was proud of them, and did not require anyone else's opinion to be proud. It was good. The wolf had different geography than the one Nadia had painted, less anatomically precise, more expressionistic, more Cora. Now, on stage, under the lights, she moved the way she always moved, like the room organized itself around her without being asked to. She had one speech, and she delivered it, looking at the audience, not at her lines, not at the wings, looking directly out into the dark of the auditorium. Halfway through the speech, she found them. Nadia felt the moment she found them, felt it before she consciously tracked Cora's gaze, because the quality of Cora's performance changed the way performance always changes when the performer has located the specific faces they were performing for, when the performance stops being for the audience and becomes, for a moment, just a message between people who know each other well enough not to need words. Cora looked at them. She smiled. It was not a small smile, and it was not a performed smile. It was the smile of a 9-year-old girl who had, as 9-year-olds sometimes do, orchestrated the exact outcome she wanted over the course of 8 months through the combination of stubbornness and honesty and the particular kind of patience that comes from knowing what you need and simply refusing to stop asking for it. The play ended. The lights came up. 3 people found each other in the crowd, the kind of crowd where other families moved in clusters around them, loud and celebratory, parents photographing their children, and they were their own cluster, the 3 of them, small and specific, and not quite named, but there. Nadia held her tote bag under her arm. The zipper had been fixed for 4 months now. Cora reached up and took her hand. She reached up with the other one and took his. He let her. He looked at Nadia over the top of Cora's head. She looked back. Neither of them said anything. They didn't need to.